Superman is the Man of Steel, hero of Metropolis, and the all-around peak superhero. The Viltrumites are a domineering and aggressive survival of the fittest society. Both parties have powers like nothing any human would have ever seen before. So what if Superman actually battled the Viltrumites? Could the Man of Tomorrow defeat the conquering empire? To answer that question, I'll lay out both parties. Krypton. The alien planet and its people would eventually bring forth Earth's greatest protector, but till he came to Earth, he was born Kal-El of the House of El. The Kryptonian people were a technological advanced society existing under the ray of a red sun. Krypton enjoyed prosperity for a while till signs showed the impending end of the planet. The end of Krypton was soon anticipated by Kal's father, Jor-El, and with the High Council of Krypton ignoring Jor-El's warnings, he decided to preserve his newborn. His wife Lara and himself decided sending young Kal to Earth in a spacefaring rocket for a fighting chance was best.
We exhausted our natural resources. As a result, our planet's core became unstable. Your mother and I foresaw the coming calamity.
On Earth, farmers Jonathan and Martha Kent found the young infant Kal and christened him Clark Joseph Kent. Clark would now grow up in Kansas under the bright rays of Earth's yellow sun. The youthful yellow sun would awaken the potential within Clark's Kryptonian physiology and grant him abilities like no other. On Earth, he could now fly, he had super strength, durability like no other, superhuman speed, heat vision, x-ray vision, frost breath, and I am telling you I could keep going. Clark, the humble farm boy, now had powers like an Olympian. Taking a costumed identity, he would go on to fight for truth, justice, and a better tomorrow.
The symbol of the House of El means hope. Embodied within that hope is the fundamental belief in the potential of every person to be a force for good.
Becoming Superman. As Superman, in this case specifically the mainline Superman, Clark would see his abilities tested time and time again. Whether that came from battles with the new god Darkseid or the destroyer known as Doomsday, his physical abilities were always contested. Alternatively though, with fights against Brainiac or the ever-tricky Miss Yespelik, Superman has found himself using his mind to combat problems as much as his body. His time as Earth's protector has made him wonderfully well-rounded. Now for his opponents, the Viltrumites. A race of alien beings with expounding strength, not dependent on any external forces. The Viltrums were a powerful race that prided themselves on their strength and fortitude. That being said though, pride is always at its highest before the inevitable fall. Viltrum decided only the strongest should live and concocted a civil war that ended in the deaths of countless, paving the way for the Viltrumite Empire to rise up, only for a virus to knock them down to less than 50. Now that number fluctuates across the story, but for all intents and purposes, we'll just go forward with that number. Somewhere around 50 or less Viltrumites.
There are fewer than 50 pure-blooded Viltrumites left in the universe. This is the Empire's most closely guarded secret.
The Viltrumite people have powers as mentioned, without the need of a source for them. They are simply just built like that. Their age is decelerated, their strength unmatched, they have flight, invulnerability, and speed that lets them get anywhere within minutes. Not to mention stamina, senses, and lung capacity on the superhuman level. They are a powerful race and a war race like no other. They would be a fearsome force if most of them weren't already dead. For the first half of the story in Invincible, we find the Viltrumites led by their Grand Regent General Thrag. Thrag cultivates his Viltrumites to be aggressive and dominating in their actions, unless it came to the infiltration and takeover of planets, in which case he has also taught them how to blend in, leaving the living Viltrumites to be both powerful and efficient under the guiding hand of Thrag. Their powers fierce, their prowess unmatched. The next stop in determining how it all go in a brawl is discussing their weaknesses. Superman may be the world's most prominent superhero on his Earth, but Clark isn't without his weaknesses. For a man called the Man of Steel, I find that he can be surprisingly paper thin when the time calls for it. The most well-known of his weaknesses, and the one made of his literal home planet, is kryptonite. The irradiated rock comes in a variety of colors, which each having their own effect on Clark.
It's a rock, a mineral, capable of weakening Kryptonian cells.
I'll go over a couple just to give you a quick idea of what can be used to combat Superman. The most iconic is that of the green kryptonite, weakening Superman to a dangerous degree, and in enough excess, it'd kill him. There is also the red kryptonite, known to force Kryptonians to act out more, usually in anger. The gold kryptonite can permanently depower a Kryptonian, and black kryptonite tends to split a Kryptonian into two entities. There's others, but that handful is the most prominent in the comics. The other major weakness Superman faces is he doesn't hold up well against magic. Doesn't matter the kind of magic, he just doesn't handle all too well. It can come in the form of blasts from magic users. It can also come in the form of having to fight fisticuffs with someone empowered by magic. That's why Superman fighting the likes of Black Adam or Captain Marvel, Shazam, your preference, is always interesting.
It's been a while since anyone's made the world this nervous. Black Adam, we should talk.
There is one more technical weakness, and that is prolonged time outside of the yellow sun. Superman's cells may store up some juice, but without constant exposure, he can burn up through everything. The yellow sun is the source of his powers, and while a blue sun could supercharge him, a red sun depowers him and makes him not too much different from you or I. Viltrumites, on the other hand, have a vast amount of weaknesses that have been taken advantage of over the course of the Invincible universe. I think they may have more weaknesses than Superman, so that's already a point for the Man of Steel. Off the bat physiology, the Viltrumites have a weakness in their ears. Their ears are sensitive to account for their flight speeds, in turn meaning high-frequency sounds will disorient the Conquerors. This weakness is most notably exploited by Robot. There are other weaknesses such as the Ragnar, a species who can bite through and pierce Viltrumite flesh. There is also a Space Rider's gun which can pierce through anything.
The Infinity Ray. It was said to emit an unstoppable energy wave that destroyed anything in its path.
Though outside of high frequency, the most deadly of weaknesses is that of the Scourge virus, a virus derived from Viltrumite DNA and specializes in killing off Viltrumites. The virus is the main cause of my baseline of roughly 50 Viltrumites. It killed most of them. With weaknesses established, let's take a look at the matchups. Superman takes on the Viltrumites. Until I rig the game, we'll start off by seeing how many one-on-one matchups Superman can win uncontested. First off, could Superman beat Oliver? Coming in as arguably one of, if not the weakest Viltrumite, is the younger son of Nolan, Oliver.
Mark,
Who's that?
this is your little brother.
You gotta be.
A part Viltrumite, part Thraxan, Oliver does not have the comparable strength that other Viltrumites have. It is safe to assume he couldn't put up too much of a fight against Superman, losing to him through strength alone. It's fairly clear he wouldn't be much of a challenge, so that's a fairly quick loss. Superman will have a few wins here. I just want to alert you guys that. Next up though, our title lead. The early stages of Mark Grayson's career, as seen at the start of Invincible and in the reboot arc, doesn't have him as a particularly powerful guy. Getting manhandled by even his own dad shows he isn't exactly the strongest at the start of it all. Superman would not have the hardest time trying to contend with a young and fresh on the scene Invincible when he has fought many stronger than him. I'm going to separate the periods of Invincibles because realistically, we spend a lot of time with different periods of Mark Grayson. Early in the series, the Invincible we spend the middle of the series with, and where we find him at the end. I'll make the distinctions clear, but early on, Mark, who has just gotten his powers, would not hold up against Superman. He couldn't make a dent in Omni-Man during their first confrontation when Nolan needed to talk. It's safe to say a freshly powered Invincible wouldn't be doing too much. Now, to contend with some of the stronger Viltrumites, we have folks like Lucan, and by reason of situation, Thula and other Viltrumites who tend to serve as enforcers.
Lucan found you first, I see. Glad you haven't gone too soft.
Lucan was weak. Now he's dead.
When Planet Thraxan was signed by the Viltrumite Empire, it wasn't done by one lone guy. Lucan seems to come flanked with at least one or two others, so it'd be at least a 3-on-1 with a fight against Superman. Now, there is no question of Lucan's strength, having broken Nolan's spine while holding in his own organs. However, Superman is a Man of Steel for a reason, and odds are he could take some licks. With his added powers of Frost Breath, Heat Vision, and the sorts Superman's got the odds to hold back the not-so-dominating Viltrumites. As well, considering he'd fly solo, he doesn't have to worry about distractions when fighting. Okay, we had to knock some of the easier stuff out of the way before we could get into some of the more fun contestants. Thetis. Spoilers for the TV-only viewers out there who are behind, an interesting one is the leader of the Coalition of Planets, Thetis.
We've been searching for a hole in the Viltrumite's armor. This could be it.
You have done well, Alan.
Thank you, great Thetis.
Thetis showed great strength in the Viltrumite War, as well as a strategy prowess like no other. Now, with that being said, I think it's clear Thetis would approach a fight with Superman from a much more feasible point of view, wanting to go in prepared. He would try to find some sort of weakness for Kryptonians, and in a merge scenario, he wouldn't have the most trouble figuring out what weaknesses Superman has. They aren't exactly uncommon in the realm of knowledge. If Thetis were to take on Superman, there would be an odds-on chance he'd try to come into the fight with Kryptonite or some form of a red sunray to try and take the advantage. However, the pure speed and the ranged power Superman has wouldn't give Thetis the opportunity to come in close and take him out. It would be a lot more contested than the other fights so far, but I think it's another win for Superman. Anissa. The most fearsome of the ladies, Anissa's approach to combat has always been one of aggression and dedication. A woman who has committed unspeakable acts in the name of the Empire, she now knows how to take people down when the time comes.
My name is Anissa, and I'm an agent of the Viltrum Empire. And if you think you can cross the space between us before I tear this woman's head from her body, you're welcome to try.
How would she fare in combat with Superman? Anissa is one of the higher enforcers in the Viltrum Empire and wouldn't be afraid to fight dirty. With that said, however, the comics show her seamlessly handled by Omni-Man. It's safe to assume if Invincible Superman equivalent could just choke her out, the real deal wouldn't see her as much of a threat at all. Just another win for Superman. Conquest. Now, when you think of strong and intense Viltrumites, Conquest is one of the ones at the top of the list.
Stand ready for my arrival, worm.
Thrag sent him to handle other Viltrumites, case in point having to go after Mark. The biggest reason he lost in the case of the fight with Mark was outside interference from Adam Eve. Conquest as a powerhouse is terribly devastating and there's no doubt it'd take a second, but in the end, Superman would take another win. How? Unlike others, Conquest gets very confident, making him act needlessly cocky. The odds are usually that he doesn't take a fight too seriously. He beat around Mark and then just had some fun with it. He'd love the challenge, but odds are he'd find himself doing a monologue or having a little fun and just getting whammed. Superman would topple Conquest and take the win. Omni-Man. There are a lot of attempts in media to pay homage to the Man of Steel, and in Invincible's world, the homage is named Omni-Man. Nolan is an exemplary example of a Viltrumite. All of the powers Viltrumites possess, he would top the charts in every regard. Would he give Superman a run for his money though? Considering his status in the Viltrum Empire and his royal blood, I'd say he'd give Superman a much better contest.
Our most trusted officers were each given a planet to weaken by themselves. I was one of those lucky few.
Being the invincible equivalent of the Man of Steel means the power Omni-Man presents is a lot more formidable. As well, it should be taken into account that he is someone with genuine feats of strength. He fended off Lucan and the two Viltrumite cronies while dealing with Mark. Superman, however, has contested 1-on-3 or more fights with the likes of strong beings and even fellow Kryptonians like Zod and his crew. Both characters in this instant know what it's like to be outnumbered. As well, Omni-Man is considered weaker than Conquest, but I think he'd put up a better fight. While Conquest is dominating and ruthless, Nolan is efficient. He'd approach Superman with a strategy similar to that of Thetis, but all the strategy in the world can't outmatch someone who's outgunned. This is just another win for Superman. Invincible mid-series.
Mark, I need your help.
I can't believe you put them up to this. Made them lie to me, too.
Just listen.
I don't have to listen to anything you say.
The middle of the series Invincible during the height of contests with Thrag and his power-ups from Adam Eve is in a similar boat to his father. For all of the efficiency and the strategy a more seasoned Mark by the time of his fights with Robot and Thrag would have, he's still just not winning. Case in point, his throwdown with Thrag in the sun is the most notable reason why Invincible couldn't have the odds in his favor. Viltrumites burn in the sun and quite honestly, Superman just doesn't. That's proof alone that durability is on the Kryptonian side and Invincible doesn't really fight dirty. In a strength contest, Superman still prevails and he'd still beat an Invincible from the middle of the series. To be honest with you, in many cases, if Superman got the upper hand, he could try to fly a Viltrumite into the sun till they pass out and it'd just be a win for Superman. Thrag. The Grand Regent of the Empire, General Thrag is an interesting case based on stamina alone. He went toe-to-toe with Battle Beast for roughly 3 to 5 days straight and walked out the winner.
Who possesses the courage to dare free Battle Beast?
One of Superman's longest one-on-one fights, if not his longest, would be that of his one-on-one with Doomsday, where he essentially tied and died temporarily. Though by this point, their Prime Earth Superman has gained some strength, and if he could match out Thrag in body blows, he could win. This would end up being one of the tighter fights, but Superman's power set exceeding just raw strength once again would give him an edge. It may be his toughest contest, but considering Thrag isn't as durable, being the other Viltrumite to burn in the sun along with Mark, Superman could get the job done. Invincible, end of series. When it's all said and done, Mark at the end of the series is 500 plus years older and boosted.
So if anyone else ever puts my family or anyone I love at risk, I won't hesitate to kill them.
Those last pages of Mark have him as the strongest living Viltrumite. Without enough evidence as to what he has done by the end of the series, it's a harder thing to call, but if he's past Thrag's strength, it could be a harder contest. This one would be the only one where you couldn't call it, as there's just not enough time spent with the Mark at the end of the series. Where is he in his prime? It's not clear. This is the only one-on-one Viltrumite fight that could be called a possible draw, though I have one more set up for a fight with the Viltrumites. Like what you saw and want to see more? Click on the video on screen.